Streaming on Kardec Radio Facebook page. This is December 8th, 2019. We're coming to you on Sundays. We come every Sundays on Kardec Radio Facebook page. We won't come into the last couple weeks of the year, and also the first. I think the first is a Sunday, but I'm not quite sure. So we'll be off air for 2 to 3 weeks for Christmas time, which I hope everybody enjoys, and for 2019, and have a happy new year for 2020. We are talking about the gospel according to Spiritism. And first, let me tell you, get Kardec Radio on your Android or your Apple phone. You go to the Play Store or your Apple Store, type in Kardec, Kardec, radio, and you can get that free loaded app. Spiritist programs 24 hours a day. Come join our Kardec Radio Facebook page. There's all sorts of information. There's people now giving lectures and talks, all wonderful things. Sergio's doing great things. He's going all around the country giving talks to Spiritist groups. Invite him. He has spiritismstudy.org. So this is all exciting. Things are happening on Spiritism. People are awakening to Spiritism, and this program is just one small little point of information to talk about Spiritism. And in this one, we're narrowing down that field to the gospel according to Spiritism. Now, this is a series I've been doing, and we're talking about each chapter one by one in the gospel according to Spiritism. But first, let me just say again, if you are a member of Netflix, there is a new movie called Kardec, Kardec. Go please look that up, and it's a wonderful movie. It tells all about Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism, how he reluctantly got involved with spirits. He wasn't a medium, but he was present at mediums meetings, and how he then asked a series of 1,019 questions. And he asked those through various multiple mediums in different geographical locations throughout Europe, and didn't use that in his book, the great headwaters of everything, the Spirits book, until he had the same or very similar answers from different mediums asking the same question. Now, the Gospel According to Spiritism, is his third book, which he got messages from other spirits, and they explain a lot of things. And this is what's so interesting. So let's get into it. What are we talking about tonight? Well, we're talking about a man must be born again. Now, let's go through where this was and what was said in the New Testament. Let me read this part of the New Testament. This is John chapter 3, verses 1 through 12. There was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. The same came to Jesus by night and said unto him, Rabbi, we know thou art a teacher come from God, for no man can do these miracles that thou doest, except God be with him. Jesus answered and said to him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Nicodemus saith unto him, How can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter the second time in his mother's womb and be born? And Jesus answered, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Marvel not that I said unto thee, Ye must be born again. The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst tell whence it come, and whither it goeth. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit. Nicodemus answered and said unto him, How can these things be? Jesus answered and said unto him, Art thou a master of Israel, and knowest not these things? Verily, verily, I say unto you, we speak that we do know, and testify that we have seen, and ye receive not our witness. If I have to given you earthly things, and ye believe not, how shall ye believe if I tell you of heavenly things? So before that, as Allan Kardec writes, and I'll read what he's written now, he said that the idea that John had been Elias, and that the prophets could relive relive again on earth is to be found in many passages of the New Testament, but it is quoted in the above extract, what I just read. If this was an erroneous belief, Jesus would have combated it as he did many others, but from this he gave it complete sanction and authority by making it a basic principle and necessary condition by saying, no one may reach the kingdom of God if he is not born again. And further insisted when he added, do not be surprised when I say it is necessary to be born again. So Allan Kardec goes through, then he looks at this, goes to the words, if a man is not born again of water and of spirit. And he says these have been interpreted in the sense of regeneration by means of the water of baptism. But in the original text, it was said simply, not born of water and of spirit, where in some translations, the words of spirit has been substituted by the word Holy Spirit, which does not correspond to the original meaning. Now, the important point from this first comments, which will be raised and Allan Kardec says, which will be confirmed beyond possible doubt, is to enable the real meaning of these words to be reached is also necessary to pay attention to the significance of the word water, which is not used here in its usual sense. The knowledge of physics was very imperfect in ancient times, when it was believed that the earth had risen out of water. Therefore, water was considered to be the exclusive primitive generating substance. This is why we read in the book of Genesis, the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. It floated above the waters. Let there be firmament in the midst of the waters. Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. So, what Allan Kardec is saying that was be born of water and of spirit, and is what Jesus meant really is what Spiritism probably calls now universal fluid, which is everything. Everything is created by universal fluid, and all the different molecules and elements of nature are created by different densities, vibrations, and harmonies of spirits using their mind to modify universal fluid into whatever element they desire it to be. So Allan Kardec goes on to say, so what is born of the flesh is flesh, and what is born of the spirit. So here Jesus established a clear distinction between body and spirit. When he says what is born of the flesh, clearly indicates that only the body generates from the body and that the spirit is independent. And then he says the words, the wind blows where it wishes, and you hear the sound, but know not from whence it comes, nor whence it goes. That's referring to the Spirit of God, who gives life to whom he wishes, or rather to the soul of man. The words, you know not where it comes from, nor where it goes, signify that we do not know who the Spirit had been previously, or who it will be in the future. If the spirit or soul was created at the same time as the body, we would know where it came from, because we would know its beginning. Whichever way you look at the passage, it confirms the principle of the pre-existence of the soul and subsequently the plurality of existences. So again, that's what they're saying. John the Baptist was Elias. What is that but reincarnation? When Paul says, I knew I was made for this job, what is that except being trained while he was in the spirit world for his incarnation as Paul? There's so many things. And then I thought Allan Kardec's explanation of the water makes total sense, right? He's not saying you must, of course, and then they also show John the Baptist would dunk people into the rivers, and that's where we got baptism. But I believe that was symbolic, and that's what people could understand. Because remember, Spiritism tells us that we're not told things that we cannot comprehend and we cannot absorb. If there was this completely different meaning of the word reincarnation, the word, you're a reincarnated, you're a spirit, that would have been so alien to people at that time, they would have just denied it, and it would not have flown through. So therefore, this is why Jesus talks in parables and stories and these type of things, because they're just getting us to understand these concepts. They can only tell us what we're ready to listen to. Just like, your child, you can't use advanced concepts because they'll just they'll tune you out, and that'll be the end of it. So whereas they hinted, right? He said you cannot cannot enter the kingdom of God unless you're born again. Well, that is a perfect explanation of what Spiritism tells us. That is reincarnation. And as I've talked about earlier before, what's the process when we talk about reincarnation? What's the process of reincarnation? The process is reincarnation is just one part of it, where we are born again into a human body here on Earth, right? There's other planets and other human-like bodies, but let's talk about Earth for a minute. Our Earth, our planet of atonement, where we live in chaos because we're here to pay for our past wrongs. So if we look at just reincarnation, we're reborn again. Why? Well, no. You have to add other things to it. You have to add the fact that karma. What is karma? Karma tracks everything we do. And so there's, as Spiritism says, for every action, there is a reaction. So as was told by as the Spirit Emmanuel told Chico Xavier, that everything we think is tagged and recorded, every thought, everything. Of course, that's why if you look at when you read my books about NDEs, well, the spirit world talks to us. That's how when a person has an NDE, they can replay scenes from that person's life and know what that person was thinking, and everyone else they talk to, they can know what they were feeling and thinking, everything. So you have karma, which then takes the information that was tracked for every single person, every single thought in our, let's say, the Earth, not to mention the universe. Let's talk about the Earth right now. Then karma says, okay, we have the law of karma. Using the law of karma, we say every action has a reaction. So, okay, if this person did not learn this lesson in that life, let's help them learn this lesson, be honest, not cheat people, etc., in the next life. And therefore, then the spirit world would take that and create a lesson plan for each individual, and they would go through the trials and tribulation of their next life. And that is the whole process. And I talk about this extensively in quite a few of my books. But another one is that just about reincarnation is the case for reincarnation, your path to perfection, the process of reincarnation, why we are reincarnated, karma works, what's promised to us, many different things. So if you really want to understand reincarnation, I suggest you read first the Spirit's book and the Gospel According to Spiritism. But if you want to get everything what was said by Chico Xavier and other authors, Spiritist mediums, you can read my book, The Case for Reincarnation. So let's get back. So what did Allan Kardec talk about in reincarnation? So I know this is something that's interesting to many people. So he also said, this is in chapter 4 of his book, that reincarnation strengthens the family ties, whereas a single life would destroy them. So a lot of what Allan Kardec does in the Gospel According to Spiritism is a lot like what St. Augustine did in his writings, where he was talking about what the pagans thought at the time and why this wasn't true and why Christianity answered this or that question. Allan Kardec does similar things. So, because a lot of times people thought, well, reincarnation, and in fact, you see this in Buddhism and other religions, well, I can reincarnate as an animal, or I can reincarnate, as a cow or whatever. No. Spiritism tells us we don't ever regress. We stay the same or we progress, right? Or progress. We go higher. We don't ever go lower. So we do not reincarnate as a cat or a dog or whatever like that. Now, cats or dogs can go higher and higher through the ladder, but they don't go back down to be, a squirrel or something. So this is a universal principle in the divine spirit world. So That's important to know. And then there's also, you think about reincarnation and go, well, okay, if I'm reincarnated, then how many mothers have I had? How many kids do I have? I mean, I could have enough family, we could make the whole, NFL, all the NFL teams. I know so many people. How's all that work? Well, Spiritism gives us that answer. This is what Alan Kardec says. Family ties are not destroyed through reincarnation, as some would believe. On the contrary, they become stronger and closer. The opposite principle would, on the other hand, certainly destroy them. In space, which it means in the spirit world, spirit entities form groups or families bound together by affection, sympathy towards each other, and by similar inclinations. Now, what Alan Kardec just said really is the law of affinity. The law of affinity, and again, this is another little part that works within that whole reincarnation karma process, puts us with others who think like us. So even when we die and we go to the real world, the spirit world, we go to that part in heaven, that level in heaven, where there are those people who are like us, who are with us in affinity and characteristics and likes and dislikes, personality, character, those type of things. If you are, say, as an example, let's talk about two examples. If you are a criminal and you are a minor criminal, you probably go to the umbra, the lower zone, and be with others kind of like you. Just maybe not completely evil people, right? Not horrible people, but materialistic and not honorable. Now, if you were a very horrible person and murdered thousands upon thousands and enjoyed being a dictator of countries or whatever, you would go down into the dark abyss and you would be with others like you. Now, when you go down there, you're not said, okay, oh, you've been a horrible dictator. You'll be a dictator down here too. No, you will then be with other people like you who all want to make you their slave and their object of torture. So that's why, again, this kind of goes on. Let me go off a little tangent here. This is how the spirit world fixes evil, fixes badness in the people. They use evil to fight evil. So if you're a very horrible person, let's say you're the dictator of North Korea, you will be put where those people are horrible to you. You go, oh my God, being like this is not good. I don't like being on the other end of this this dictatorship where I'm told what to do and I'm tortured if I don't do it. They will learn. Then they will be reincarnated. They will probably be incarnated somewhere on Earth, being probably one of the peasants in a dictatorship like the one that person did before. In fact, Emmanuel talks about, Roman generals who are then reborn as slaves, reborn as beggars. They were at the pinnacle of what their success would have been during the Roman Empire, and then their next life they were down at the bottom of the food chain. Just like Emmanuel himself was a senator. In another life, he came back as a slave. So these things happen. This is why, we can't, be mean or, be angry at whole groups, because if we think, oh, this group's terrible, they don't know what they're doing, or this person's terrible, well, just know that you don't have to get revenge, or you don't have to teach that person a lesson. Karma will work its wonders. Karma will, the whole process of reincarnation will put them in positions where they will learn what they did was not a good idea. This is why we know that God loves us. God loves us because we are being taught these lessons. And when we go through and are taught these lessons, we should think the same. We go, okay, why do I have this trial? Why is this happening to me? Well, what should I learn from this? Don't be mad at the person who's doing something bad to you. That person's just being used as a tool to get you to learn something. So let's get back to families. So as Alan Kardec said, these families are happy at being together, and these spirits seek each other, right? So incarnate life separates them only for a while. So on Earth, you're not alone. Excuse me. You're not alone. You are with your friends and family. The ones who aren't incarnated with you, a lot of them will be, are watching you from a distance and helping you on your journey. And this is what Alan Kardec says. Frequently, they'll even follow each other into the incarnate form, coming here to be united in the same family or the same circle of friends and acquaintances in order to work together for their mutual progress. When some members of the same spiritual family become incarnate and others not, they then continue their contact by means of thought. Those who are free watch over those who are captive. And it means by captives us in the human body. Those who are more advanced do everything they can for the less advanced, so helping them to progress. After each physical existence, all have made some advancement, even if it's only a step along the path to progress. As they become less bound by matter, their affections become more real and more spiritually refined, due to the fact that they are not perturbed by selfishness or violent passions. This then allows them to live many lives in the flesh without suffering any loss of mutual esteem. So, and then we have someone just commenting on what my talking right now. And this is what this person is saying, and it follows to what I'm trying to project to you. It says, what I'm beginning to sense is that this earth life stage is one half of the University of Wisdom's teaching process, and down here in this density, we are in the ontological lab where we explore, experience, self-educate, evolve, all on an eternal timeline. Then when we leave the laboratory and return back home, we do that SWOT, which analysis was like, I think I forgot what SWOT is. I used to know that when I was a middle level manager. It used to be like a planning. Oh, I think it was threats is the T. People have to look at that to begin to set up our next life's plan. That is what I'm sensing, and that's exactly true. And that is, we analyze that, and that is the whole what was just said there in that comment. That is really, again, what I keep trying to explain to everyone, that's the process of reincarnation. It's not just the, oh, you're just born again randomly and then you'll learn like a little puppy learns or whatever. No, everything is you're born. Let's talk about it. You're born again, but when you're born again, your life was pre-planned at that time. Your life is pre-planned. The planning was created by your actions in your previous life or lives even beyond that if you didn't learn your lessons before. And then as you go through your present life, everything you done is tracked and analyzed. And then as it's analyzed, your plan for your next life is being created. So you can look at this just like you're planning a project, right? Each one of us is a project, and as a project is created, you create a blueprint for the project. You create metrics so you can follow the progress of the project. You analyze the project. You have reports of that project, and you see, okay, how we're doing. Okay, well, this needs to be done, and some of those plans may change. It's dynamic. And that's what I talk about, like NDEs. SWOT is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I knew there was a threat in there. I couldn't remember that. It's been so long since I've used that. So that's perfect. That's a part of the analysis. What we have. What were our strengths during our life? What were our weaknesses? What are our opportunities to grow? And what are the threats? What have we done? What have we done wrong? What's holding us back? So those are the things that are extremely important. Now, and again, this is what I say when people need to have, if they're really going off kilter, I believe, and this is those people that have NDEs or those that are like those ones that are their life plan wasn't following what they should be doing, and they said, "Oh, let's take this person out. Let's talk to them for a bit." Not all NDEs are like this, but a great many are, where you go and you talk. You kind of say, oh, this is your life. This is what you've done. This is what you've done correct. This is you may want to improve a bit. And these people that come back after a near-death experience always say, oh, okay, I know I have multiple lives. I have a blueprint I have to follow. And they're re-energized so they can follow it. This is why understanding this puts everything we do and all these chaotic things that happen in our life really aren't so chaotic. I'm sure there's some things that are chaotic, but most of it all follows a plan. The spirit world knows what they are doing. And you can try to deny that. I have many times, but then I sit back and I look at it, I go, oh, yeah, they're right. I did need that, even though I didn't like it at the time. Just like your child doesn't like you disciplining them, and they get mad at you and they cry and they think you are the worst person in the world, but you love them. And you demonstrate the fact that you love them by you're trying to make them ready for real life, for adult life. Well, the spirit world is trying to make us ready for the real life, the spirit life, for us to be civilized so we can actually be of use for a spirit. When I talk about of use, what do I mean? Well, heaven is multiple layers. There's areas you go through, you learn on each level of heaven. But finally you reach that level, which is like the graduate level, where you've learned all the processes and the parts and how things work within the spirit world. And then you're actually ready to use all that, to use your mind, to start creating, to use all this information to actually help create planets, help guide humans, help create plants and animals, evolve, all that. So the reason we're on this earth is so that we will become a productive member of spirit society, just like with your children or your nieces and nephews. As you try to help them or help other people at work, you're trying to make those people productive. That's exactly why we're here on this earth. And let's get back to Allan Kardec, the Gospel According to Spiritism. As part of making us productive and helping us become mature, that is why families, and why there's the law of affinity, families kind of go together, because you have this support group. Like in business, you're assigned, let's say, many businesses assign a mentor. Well, we are full of mentors. We may not like what they tell us, but we have usually, not maybe all the time, usually we have people who have our best interests at heart, who are incarnate with us. And they love us, not just based on this life because we are their son or their daughter, for instance, but they've been with us for thousands of years. So, and this is what Allan Kardec says about this. It is understood, of course, that when we refer to real affection, soul to soul being the only love which survives after the destruction of the body, so it follows that those of this world who join together because of physical attraction will have no motive to look for each other in the spirit world. The only lasting relationships are those linked by spiritual affection, all carnal affections being distinguished together with the cause that brought them about. In other words, the physical body. Understand by this that the physical cause no longer exists in the world of spirits, but the soul exists eternally. With regard to those who join together exclusively out of interest, they clearly mean nothing to each other. Death separates them both on earth and in heaven. The union and affection which can exist between relatives is an indication of former sympathies which have brought them together. This is why, when referring to someone whose character, taste, and inclinations holds no similarity to other members of the same family, it is customarily to say that they do not belong to that family. When saying this, the truth is expressed far more profoundly than suspected. God permits, this is what Allan Kardec is writing, that in certain families, these spirits who are uncongenial or strangers to each other reincarnate with the dual purpose of serving as a test for some members of that family and as a means of progress for others. In this manner, due to contact with good spirits and the general care dispensed to them, the bad or wicked spirits get better little by little. And of course, everyone has seen this, right? There's like the black sheep of the family. Well, usually, maybe not always, but I would say usually, that black sheep of the family, that person, you have this family, wonderful people, then you have that one person, either they got into drugs or they did something, or they're just totally different. They stick out like a sore thumb. that is usually, just as Allan Kardec said, a more primitive spirit that family volunteered to take to try and help them mold their character. Because remember, what Spiritism tells us, when we're born all the way to like between 15 and maybe sometime 18, 20, we, before that time, before 15 to 20, we are very moldable, right? We are very humble. We're children. We can be changed. But once they became around 15, their true character starts coming out. And this true character is part of their past lives, right? This is why, in our modern culture, we talk about, you know, um, you know, environmental conditions and then inherited personality traits. And really, what inherited in personality traits, and yes, it's always a balance of both things. There's not a one or the other, but really, inherited traits are those ones that are given to our soul as we come out as 15 or past that age. Those are characteristics that we have gotten from all of our previous lives. But the environment in which there's a loving family can help some spirits who really needed that lesson to be a much better person, mold their character and kind of get rid of those primitive emotions and replace them with more noble emotions. So that is why everything's a combination. So, and then he goes on about the fear of some people with regard to the indefinite increase in relationships due to reincarnation. And he says, well, does the father has many children, love them any less than there's only one? And so I think the fact that a person may have had 10 incarnations does not mean that in the spirit world he'll find 10 fathers, 10 mothers, 10 wives, and a prodigious number of children. Really, what they will do is that person will encounter only those who have been the object of his or her affections, some of whom would have been linked to here on earth in various relationships, and perhaps even the same one. There was a great talk by Geraldino, and he talked about the spirit Emmanuel and the families, and he traced the families all the way from when Emmanuel was a Roman senator, and then the book 50 years later, which Emmanuel was a slave at the time, but then he worked for this couple, and there was this woman, who loved the guy, but he married someone else, and then her maid that kind of helped plot against him, right? And he traced their lives through various incarnations until in the 20th century, the man was married who he was married, but the woman the woman and the maid who plotted against his wife, even back in Roman times, were then born as his sisters. So the spirit world not only keeps us together, but they also try to repair these relationships as we go. So you never know. That's why you try, especially with family members, if you're really butt heads with family members, try to resolve that. And because if you don't, now they're going to be born with you again. So you might as well like them, because the spirit world does not like unresolved conflicts. Again, look at the whole part of process of karma, reincarnation, learning, tracking, right? What are the metrics? What are the metrics of reincarnation? Well, you're supposed to be a better person. If essentially you're supposed to be a pure spirit, you're not supposed to have enemies in this world, right? Remember, again, Jesus said, forgive 7 times 70. There's a reason for that, because if you have enemies, they will follow you even in the spirit world. And then if they're in the spirit world and you are in the physical plane at the time, they'll follow you there too. These are all things, all of these conflicts must be resolved. Now, further on in the Gospel according to Spiritism, in the sections about being born again, he asks, what are the limits of incarnation? This is what he says. In actual fact, incarnation does not have clearly defined limits if we are thinking only of the envelope which constitutes the physical covering of the spirit, since the materiality of this covering diminishes in proportion as the spirit purifies itself. In certain worlds more advanced than Earth, this covering is already less compact, less heavy, more refined, and consequently less subject to vicissitudes. In worlds of still higher elevation, it is translucent and almost fluidic. It dematerializes by degrees and finally becomes absorbed in the perispirit. According to the kind of world in which it lives, the spirit reclothes itself with a covering appropriate to that world. The perispirit itself undergoes successive transformation. It becomes more and more etheric until it reaches complete depuration, which is the state of all pure spirits. If special worlds are destined for more highly advanced spirits, they do not remain prisoners there as in the inferior worlds. The special state of detachment in which they find themselves allow them to travel to any part of the universe to which they may be called on in missions. He goes on to say, if we consider incarnation from the material point of view, such as can be verified here on Earth, we can say that it is limited to inferior worlds, but it depends on each spirit to liberate itself more or less quickly by working towards purification. We should also consider that in a discarnate state, that is to say, in intervals between bodily existences, the situation of each spirit depends on the nature of the world to which it is linked, by the degree of advancement it has acquired. Thus, in the spiritual world, we are more or less happy, free, or enlightened according to the degree of dematerialization achieved. And Allan Kardec actually wrote that, or put that in the Gospel according to Spiritism from a, uh, a narrative sent by St. Louis in Paris in 1859. So, what are we being told? So, and I tell you, let me go off for a second. Can't tell you how many people have told me through email or conversation, like, oh, I don't want to come back to this life. This life is horrible. I hate this life. I'm not planning on coming back. Well, I believe you have the free will if you are in a level of heaven. If you are in the lower zone, or if you are if you're like into the dark abyss, then you'll be incarnated again when the spirit world thinks you should be, and you're not really part of the plan for your incarnation, because you're going to be taught things. You're a kindergartner or first grader. You don't get to pick your classes. But if you are in one of the levels of heaven, you work with other spirits and you plan out your body, you plan out your trials and your tribulation, you plan out the major events, and you also know what type of family members who you're going to incarnate with as a group. Now, what does that mean? Is that then you ask for what you have. And when I have people saying, I don't like this life, and then I can tell when I talk to them, most of them are good people. They've gone through trials and tribulations that in their mind is not fair and is unnecessary, and they don't understand why. But what I try and tell them is, you probably created this because you really needed it. If you look deep within yourself, you'll know why you needed to have this in order to change your character and your personality. And I want to make this as the main point. We have to suffer through this because the earth in our physical bodies is the best place to learn to really modify our character and our personality. In heaven, where there's love permeates the atmosphere, yes, we can learn and we can change ourselves, but it is much more difficult to make those really radical, tough changes for being, a sarcastic person, and so on and so forth. So it's I shouldn't say easier. It's more efficient to change ourselves because we're on this emotional plane, and we stress our emotional quotient and our personality and our character much more than we do our intellect and our love in the spirit world. So what I usually say, if you don't like this life, learn the lessons that were given to you. Try and study and learn and be even better than you think you could be. And then each life because your actions now are already creating the blueprint for your next life. And then eventually, the faster you ascend and you study and you work towards making yourself that wonderful person that you know you would wish to be, more spiritual, less materialistic, you won't have to reincarnate again unless you volunteer and you go on a mission. So this gets us to the next question, which is a question, in the book of the Gospel According to Spiritism. Is incarnation a punishment, and are guilty spirits bound to suffer them? So this is what Allan Kardec wrote, or from, he got messages from spirits. The passing of spirits through corporal life is necessary in order that they may fulfill by means of a material action the purpose to which God assigned them. This is necessary for their own good, as the activity which they are obliged to perform will help the development of their intelligence. Being just, God must distribute everything in equal parts to all his children. So it is established that everyone starts from the same point, with the same aptitudes, the same obligations to fulfill, and having the same liberty to proceed. Any type of privilege would be an injustice, but for all spirits, incarnation is a transitory state. It is a task imposed by God at the beginning of life as a primary experiment in the use of free will. Those who discharge this task with zeal pass over the first steps of their initiation quickly, less painfully, and so are able to reap the fruits of their labor at an earlier date. Those who, on the contrary, make bad use of the liberty that God has granted them, delay their progress, and according to the degree of obstinacy demonstrated, may prolong the need for reincarnating indefinitely, in which case it becomes a punishment. So, again, this is exactly what people say. This life's a punishment. Well, it's a punishment because you are stubborn. You're not learning the lessons that you have been assigned to. And if you're not learning the lessons, you're going to get the lessons over and over again. There's no graduating just because you've aged out of this age, this class. That doesn't work. You don't get to age out of the class. You have to learn the lesson. You have to resolve. You have to improve in that area which you know you have to improve. And that gives you the other point that I need to finish. When I'm saying that if you're in heaven, you can put off being incarnated again. I don't know how long, but probably for a long, long time if you don't want to go. But what happens is that you want to get on that next level. You want to go and improve yourself. You want to learn more. You want to be part of the spirit world. And in order to do that, you must repair and take out certain primitive emotions and replace them with more advanced emotions. And the only way to do that efficiently is to be incarnated again. So it's your decision. And that's why I think some people, they want to get that over with. And I think some people give themselves too harsh of a task and too harsh of a whole plan for their life. And so it really is tough for them. And if you may have wanted to be a little bit smoother on what you wanted to learn, but again, that's your free will. And as the spirits tell us, the person who judges you the most harshly is yourself. So think about that. Okay, so as Allan Kardec said, so one who doesn't want to learn will have to repeat certain lessons. It's not the work of the class which is the punishment, but the necessity to recommence the same work over again. And this, he goes on to write, this is what happens to mankind on earth. For the primitive spirit, who is only at the beginning of his spiritual life, incarnation is the means which he can develop his intelligence. Nevertheless, it is a punishment for an enlightened man who, in a moral sense, has been greatly developed, to be obliged to live over again the various phases of a corporeal life full of anguishes, when he could have arrived at the end of his need to stay in inferior and unhappy worlds. On the other hand, if that person works actively towards his moral or her moral progress, they shorten the period of the material incarnations. And they may also jump over the immediate steps which separate him or her from the superior worlds. Now, is it possible to spirits to incarnate only once in any one world and then fulfill their other existences in different worlds? And this would only be possible if every person were at exactly the same point in both intellectual and moral development. The differences between them, from the savage to civilized man, show the many degrees which must be ascended. Besides, an incarnation must have a useful purpose. But what of the short, then he asked, what of the short lived incarnations of children who die at a tender age? Have they suffered to no purpose for themselves or for other? God, whose laws are wise, does nothing that is useless. Through reincarnating on the same globe and by being once again in contact with each other, he wishes these same spirits to have the desire to repair reciprocated offenses. With the help of their past relationships, he wishes to establish family ties on a spiritual basis found in the principles of natural laws of solidarity, fraternity, and equality. So let me give you some examples. Some spirits will come through and they will volunteer to be incarnated as a child and die at an early age so that their parents can learn a lesson in love and suffering and help themselves spiritually. Then I read that there's a spirit that I forgot a medium was walking along the beach and saw this spirit walking out of the water. Well, first he saw a woman throw her baby into the ocean, and he ran there, but he couldn't find the baby in the ocean. And then he saw the spirit walking from the water, and he says, were you that baby? He goes, yes, I was thrown in the water and I was killed. He goes, why? Well, it goes, in my past life, I was a pirate. And when I took over ships, if there was children on, I just throw them overboard. They were useless. I didn't want them. And now, over and over again, I have been killed in different ways by mothers, and I'm going through what I did to other people. I hope it ends one day. There's another reason. So there's always reasons for everything. It is just so interesting. Things are so intricate and our lives are so interconnected that you never know what was the reason. And when you say, well, there's so much injustice in the world, and to us looking at life through the lens of one life only, because that person may just be a great person, and yet to have that happen to them is horrible. But when you look, that person may have asked that illness, may have asked that accident, whatever it was, or may have asked to have that person cheat them of all their money, whatever, because of what they wanted to learn from a past life and atone for from a past life. These things are all part of that. And this is what learning about and being a spiritist entails, is it really shows us the complexity of our life here on earth. And I can't, stress this enough. It's important for people to really learn what it means. What is heaven like? What is a spirit? And this is why I think, a good study aid is my book too, for you to understand is, first I talked about my book, The Case for Reincarnation, all about reincarnation. But I think another motivating factor is, what is a spirit? Why do we have to train ourselves? What about being a spirit? Why is our life so hard on earth? Well, I have a series of 3 books. Book 1 is Heaven and Below, all about heaven, about Jesus Christ in heaven. But book 2 is really all about spirits and the spirit universe. What is life like as a spirit? What are the spirit attributes? What talents? How do you go in the hierarchy of spirits? What do you learn? How do you learn? This is all there. And I think this is something that once you understand the complexity and just the wonderment of life in the spirit world, you understand why we have to go through the tough training we do here on earth. It is not easy. It's not meant to be easy. As Chico Xavier said once, it's about 30% of the people, when they pass over, they go to one of the heavenly levels. That leaves about 70% of people who still haven't grasped the fact that karma is real, that what we do in this life means something for us and in the next life. They haven't grasped the fact that all of our luxuries and the wealth we have are just transitory and they're unimportant, because what are we in the end? What can we take with us? We are an immortal spirit, and all that we take from us from the earth is our improvement here and our improvement in our personality and our character. Because when we die, we still are who we were. We are that nice person, or we are that mean person. We are still that personality and character. Hopefully we've improved in that life. We've become a nicer person. And that is our goal for all of us, is to go for that arc and eventually rise up and become that nicer person. So I want to tell everybody, please visit my site, nwspiritism.com. I will put this up into YouTube and my BitChute channels. I post that Sunday nights or Monday mornings. Please go there and tell people to subscribe, comment, share this video to other Facebook sites. There's so much out there. I recommend for everyone to learn about Spiritism. It will answer your questions. Anyway, I want to say God bless to everybody and good night.